world. This is Paper Cuts with Brad and Jay.
We'll just get this out of the way here. Thanks for joining us on Brad's show.
Yeah, thanks for coming to my show. I did not say shenanigans. Okay.
Are you drinking already?
No, I've just got water. Always looking smooth, aren't you?
Yeah, I do it. I try to clean it up for the show. Look, one of us has to. Come on.
Grab your bottle of bourbon. It's time to chat with Ashley Erwin. Shit, that rhymed. We are live.
Well, happy Saturday. I almost said Friday.
Because it's Friday.
Normally it's Friday. Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to another exciting show of Paper Cuts. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out. We really appreciate it. My name is Jay. That's Brad over there. Get ready for a fun Saturday afternoon show. This is actually, Brad, a makeup show, a makeup episode, because we were going to do this in December and you had to go off and get the cooties, right?
I had to get the cooties. It's the kids' fault.
The kids brought it in. Cootie bug going around, and it actually pissed off our guest. Like, she ghosted us for a while.
She was so mad.
She was like, screw that small time show. A very small, she's got bigger things to do. And then
I reached out to her. It was just emoji middle fingers. Yeah.
We did some negotiating. There was some blackmailing going on, some weird pictures that we can get into later and all that stuff. But finally, welcome to the show, the writer of Grit Black Blood. That just sounds very good.
Such a good title, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Ashley Erwin, everyone, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. None of that stuff they just said was true. I did not do any of that.
Are you saying I'm making it up? No way.
But it makes what? Spectacle always contributes some sort of luxury to a situation. So we'll take it whenever we can, right? It gives a buzz feed, right? Gets the kiddies all excited.
But the audience wouldn't expect anything less from me. So
no, the people that listen to us don't believe a word out of Jay's mouth. So we're all good. I think they've come to know by now that you can't trust Jay.
Okay. Thanks so much for the compliments there, Brad. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jay.
Yeah.
I haven't talked bad about Ohio yet. We're only 30 seconds into the show or so. So
give it time. Okay.
So Ashley, you're out on the West Coast. What are you normally doing on an early Saturday afternoon?
So I'm big into hiking. I didn't really understand it before we moved out here. We moved from Atlanta about 10 years ago, and I would rather have just gone for a run, but I got to tell you, there's a big old park here called Griffith Park. It's got many treacherous mountains, and we like to ruck it up and get a little Goggins energy going on a Saturday. So that's normally what I've been doing. The sun's out, and we would be probably about 2 miles deep.
I was gonna say you have the weather to do it out there.
Yeah.
We're here on the East Coast, we're wearing coats in our houses and stuff, and
freezing to death.
Yeah. You can't beat the weather. That's why you live here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have the earthquakes. It's a flip
that is
of a
true.
Trade off.
So
one day you might just be floating out in the ocean. So
right. Yeah. We'll see what happens, right?
So I wanted to talk about your day job. So you work for, is it Angel's Envy Bourbon?
Yeah, I'm in the whiskey business. That's what I like to say.
That's great.
And business is good.
Business is always good for bourbon.
Yeah.
So what do you have to school me on the drinking? Because I don't drink.
Jay's oblivious.
Yeah, so you got to school me on some of this stuff. So
you know what? I feel like whatever lane you want to drive down, friend, that's the lane you should. So it's all good. We got plenty of fans.
What is your normal day-to-day stuff? Like, what do you do?
A lot of things. I manage a team, run the advocacy for the West Coast. I got my hands in about 26 states. I disseminate program, I curate experiences, and I try to lead folks and give them a platform of support so that they can grow within their professional career. But the long and the short of it is it's people business, right? It's personal relationships and being a liaison between the brand and crafting a story that people can associate with. So that comes pretty natural. And then I came out of the hospitality industry. I was in that for about 21 years. So this was sort of a natural progression. And someone had put my name in a hat and I went into it. So I've been with the company for about 5 years and I've been pretty tickled pink with it. They're wonderful people. And I mean, the juice speaks for itself. So I can't really beat it with a stick.
Where do they brew that at? Is it out of California?
No, it's based in Louisville, downtown.
Louisville. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you get to come to Louisville pretty often?
Say it again.
Do you get to come to Louisville pretty often?
Yeah, I do actually. For the launch of the book, I was in Louisville around that time, and I hosted a couple of book readings, and I got family all in Eastern Kentucky as well. So I try to get out there as much as I can. But I do travel a lot. Yeah.
You're on the go as soon as you wake up. You're just nonstop making connections. I mean, does that
Yeah.
ever get tiring?
Oh, well, I mean, I wake up 3 hours behind where we're at because, Pacific time zone
Yeah.
versus Eastern. So it's a little bit of a shuffle, but and I manage a couple of different time zones. I got Hawaii all the way over to Central.
Ooh,
So
dang.
yeah, it's busy, but it's wonderful. Like I can't speak highly enough about the company. And I've got a great group of people that I work with and I work for, and lots of really exciting stuff on the whiskey front end of it. So yeah, I'm 90 miles a minute for sure.
yeah. So how do you find time to write though if you're doing all this stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. So I don't really sleep that much all that often. I get about that's the long and the short of it. So my day will start, anywhere between depending on where I'm at and what's on the slate, anywhere from 6 a.m. And it'll go depending on if I'm traveling. Sometimes it's 14-hour days with entertaining and whatnot. Sometimes it's not. But let's say I'm at the house, right? So I'm at the house. My day will start typical 8. I'll work until about 8 or 9 on whiskey business, and then I'll carve out writing until about 11 or 12, and so then I usually sleep about 6 hours and repeat.
Busy.
So how long did it take
I like it that way.
for this new book? How long did that like? Are we talking months, years? I mean, a little bit at the time.
Yeah. So this is interesting because I have a lot of distance between this book. I finished this book probably 5 years ago, and it took me about 3 or 4 years to write. I was writing it in conjunction with a couple of other projects that I was doing, but the process takes a process. I suppose it's not done until it's done. So. I kind of just allow for the meandering to occur. But I would say I'm working on another thing that I'm hopeful right now that I'm hopeful I'm going to be able to crank out in probably about 1.5 years too.
Okay. So was this book just sitting on a shelf for 4 or 5 years before you start shopping around, or have you been shopping that whole time? Or
yeah, it was shopping. I mean, as you can tell, it's a whomper. It's a big old
400 pages. Yeah,
definitely. It's quite the tome. So I shopped it around for a while, and then how it came to fruition is that Ron from Shotgun Honey gave like a little shout out on Twitter and was like, I think I'm gonna publish this book, and he said my book, and I did not. I don't even know if that time if I had submitted it to them, because I think it was out of their word count, clearly, because this is about like 130,000 words or something like that. And I hit him up on a message. I was like, are you serious, friend? I was like, my goodness. And he said, yeah, you go send me over the manuscript. And I think just the universe aligned that way. Shotgun Honey was one of the first platforms that published a short story of mine about 10 years ago. Okay. And Ron is just the nicest person in the entire world. Genuinely the nicest person, and really loves what he does and loves the craft. And he's in West Virginia, and this takes place in southeastern Kentucky, and it's about a bunch of Baddens, and so the world just kind of lined up. But shopping something around is hard. It takes a long time. Right. It's a lot of rejection, and you've got to find somebody that really vibes with what you're trying to do. And I think that I had kind of like curated enough of rapport in, I suppose, if you want to delegate it like the crime writing world, if you want to put it in that little niche, because I travel around and do readings at Noir at the bar, and I've done that quite a lot. And I suppose some folks maybe said some nice stuff, and he lent an intrigue, and so here we are. And my goodness, I'm thankful for it. So
yeah, I really like their lineup, and like I don't know how many books I've gotten directly from them, but yeah, I really like the lineup they have, and it's got that feel. It's got that feel.
Yeah.
It's got like a, I don't know what it is, but Shotgun Honey books. Yeah, you just know that this book is for Shotgun Honey. So yeah.
Yeah, they've got a good aesthetic. He's got a good thread line that runs throughout, and a wonderful lineup, and a lot of great books coming out, and a lot of good books that just did come out, and all of the authors are just, the writers are just, they're great.
Yeah, because you just
good group of folks to be in.
You just read C.W. Blackwell's was it Hard Clay Mountain, Jay?
Yeah. Oh, I did as well. Pardon me.
Yeah.
I think C.W. he blurbed your book, didn't you? Did he blurb your book?
Yeah, he did. He's nice.
You've got an S.A. Cosby blurb on there. That's good. I love his blurb too. A Greek tragedy soaked in moonshine and Crisco. The Crisco part just adds that little extra, that little southern twang on the end. That Crisco.
Yeah, he was. I met him at BoucherCon in St. Petersburg, Florida, like 4 years ago, and we just lit up because Eric Pruitt was hosting a panel on Southern Writers, and it was him and Steph Post and Sean, and then Sean and I, we speak the same language, so he's been really kind, and he's just kind in general, the way that he supports the writing community and how he lends just a platform, and just always wants to give folks an opportunity, and it was very kind of him. So he's just, and whenever I get the opportunity to hang out with him, he was just out in LA for Jordan Harper's book, and we went and ate some food and hung out and kicked it. And his wife is just the funniest person in the entire world. She's so lovely. I mean, she just tickles me pink. So yeah, he's very nice of him. That's a long roundabout answer to say very nice of him.
Yeah.
I like to see his success too, because President Obama put him on his summer books to read list, and his movie's coming out soon, or they're starting to film his movie. So I'm excited for him and his success too. That's cool.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and he's got things cranking out. Yeah, it's great.
Let's talk for a second, because I'm curious about this. The way the book is written, the wording. I mean, it's I've never read a book that has that deep of an accent in it. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. It's the vernacular.
I'm sure there's a specific term for it, but we're not.
I don't know, but I mean, it was
I don't know what it is.
Did it slow you down any writing like that, or did you have to figure out a different way to spell things? Because I mean, I've heard the accent before, but I'm automatically spelling things the right way, and to try to tell us about the writing, the actual wording you used with it. Yeah,
it's pretty simple. It's the answer is simple, right?
Okay.
My dad was a great storyteller. His brothers were great storytellers. And I come from the tradition of the best storyteller around the fire gets the biggest snoot of the whiskey jug, right? So all of my writing is basically a continued conversation with my father who has passed. It is literally me just telling a story the way that my dad would tell a story and the way that my uncle would tell a story. And they talk like this, and they get into it, and they go and they sit up next to the fire, and that's how they talk about it. And so when I started writing, it just I allowed these characters to come out of me, and that's how it presented itself. And so I just tried to kind of liaise how my accent would sound when I'm reading it to you. And because I come from a tradition of oral storytelling, which is why I like to do these noir at the bars, because you got to be in the room, you got to hear it. It's kind of like punk rock, right? It exists for this very small moment, and then it dissipates. And unless you're in the room, you don't get it. That's the simple answer for why it's spelled that way. Probably because I didn't know any better, quite frankly. I mean, that's what it is. I was just like, oh, that sounds right. I feel like the best way to denote that you would drop your Y there is probably just to drop the Y. Let's put an apostrophe. All right, that sounds about good.
So with your other writings, are you going to do sort of the same style, or are you going to switch it up with every book depending on what it is? Or
that's a great question. I'm working on something right now, my mom. Look, to your point, I know that it takes a little bit of dedication to sit with this, right? It's like a little heavy Chevy. I'm kind of saying, like, you got to be in it.
You can't read it
And
fast. At least for me, I couldn't read it fast. I have to
Right.
slow
No,
down
no.
and read it.
I mean, it's slowed me down a lot. But I'm also,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also the old guy that I'm not good with like abbreviations and stuff. Like I'm quicker spelling things out. Like the LOLs. I could do laugh out loud quicker, and you know what I mean. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I can't do the abbreviations, so that's why it slowed me down a little bit as I was reading it, trying to figure it out.
No, it's kind of a live-in book as well, right?
Yeah.
Because it's talking about multiple generations, multiple timelines, and a lot of kind of like heavy Chevy scenarios. So it's meant to be like, I want you to wade in the water, and I want you to get stuck in the mud with it. But what I'm writing right now is I'm trying to write a straight book, is what I'm saying. That's what I call it. So something my mom would want to read. And my mom's like a huge fan of, like Dean Koontz and things that are just like real flip the page fast turners. And so I've been trying to read writers that are similar to like that. I'm about to wrap up All the Light We Cannot See, which is, if y'all have not, I mean, it's been out for a while. It's fantastic.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it yet.
Holy cannoli, read it. Just do it. It's so damn good. But the writer just like one page chapters, and so you just fly through it. So I'm trying to write that. I'm not doing a lot of my normal kind of inflection, but we'll see. I'm not that far into it, so I'm sure I'll just go back to my old ways. And
I was going to say, you start out that way, like the first 3 or 4 chapters that way, and then we go back.
It bleeds into it.
Exactly.
That was just a build up.
Yeah,
that was a little teaser.
Yeah, it takes place in the South, and it's something completely out of my wheelhouse. I'm honestly just trying to write a book that my mom will read.
It's like a facade. Just to get get you hooked the first 4 chapters, but then bam, we're back to.
And then the Yars come in and all that stuff. Chapter 5.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I don't have to preface it with "Sorry for the violence, Mama." You know what I'm saying? Like, I did this reading once in one of my favorite stories. I did this reading I got invited to somebody's house in like Beverly Hills or something. They came to a reading and they wanted me to participate in a salon. So that's just a fancy word for a reading. And it was all these like well-to-do women, that in any other time would be white gloved up, right, sipping tea. And I start reading the stuff that I write. And I was sitting next to this little blue hair with like a glass of white wine. And, I just whispered to her, I was like, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. Because I think I just,
out when they...
Right. I just laid into it and I kept being like, I got to tell you, I'm a real nice person, but my goodness, don't I like writing about bad people. Oh, Lord. So, so we're going to try and write something that's straight-laced. That's what I'm going to call it.
Straight-laced mystery thriller or something.
Yeah. A cozy. It won't be, but...
As cozy as it could be.
Yeah.
Right.
You talk about the one-page chapters, though, like going back and forth between Willard and Connie was cracking me up.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah, I wanted it to be like really fast and how kind of this swift progression of just when you see somebody in a bar and like you just that's it. That's a connection occurs.
Yeah. What you could do, go the Stephen King route and that straightforward normal book have a different name, use a different name for it, and do that throughout your keep writing this kind with the Ashley Erwin name, and then do 3 or 4 of those and then see how long it takes for someone to realize it's the same person.
It's the same person.
I like that.
Start having characters interact with the books.
Yeah. Well, that's what one of the writers that I first fell in love with when I was pretty young was Anne Rice, and she writes under so many different pseudonyms for all of her things. So I might very well do that. We'll have to erase this. No,
I know.
No,
we'll edit this part out.
Let's start now. Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Paper Cuts. We'll start. Come on out. Go off camera for a second. Come back in. And
let me play the intro again. We'll play the intro and
starting now.
So your other book, it was under A.L. Erwin, so that was kind of a pseudonym name.
Yeah, and that was a fun one. That was the
longest title I've ever heard.
Could you pick a longer title for that one?
Oh my gosh, it's so good. I was really I love westerns. I love samurai stories. And I just wanted to drop you into this world, and I loved that long title.
See,
It was so much
a
fun.
ballad concerning Black Betty is good, and then you got to add the rest of it, or the retelling.
Or
Yeah.
depending on how you look at it, it could be a
Yeah.
retelling of a man, you know,
Man
so-
killer
Man
and a
killer and a
machete.
machete.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, it's going to be a good time. Let's buckle up. It's a bunch of bad ones in that one. Top Hat was one of my favorite characters to write, up until a couple in here. But yeah, he's a real nasty piece of work.
How long is that book? Is that 400 pages also, or
It's up there. It's probably like 100,000 words. Yeah.
okay? So
I
that's
don't
what
know- I
you're
don't know
used
if-
to. That's what you're
She's telling these big long ballads, these epics.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think how my writing process differentiates some is that probably to my dismay, y'all tell me, is that I'm not a huge like plotter, mapper, outer, up until a point right now. I'm more of I'm a conduit for the character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I allow myself to be present and I have pen and paper, words will just come into my head. I know that sounds so silly. That sounds silly even when I say that. But words will come into my head and I'll write them down. And next thing I know, it's a character that's just talking through me. God, that sounds stupid. But
a lot of other authors say that too. And talked about that last episode. Like that blows my mind when an author can say, I don't know where the story's going. I'll let the characters tell me. Just like
1000%.
for me, I can't comprehend that. Like you're like the creator, you're the God, you should know what's going on. And for it to be the other way, I just can't wrap my head around that.
But I like how they get into like the character's mind though, and then allows it to happen. So
yeah, like this book, Grit Black Blood, started with Hound, the Hound Bonahue. I wrote a short story, and because when I got done with A Ballad Concerning Black Betty, I was like, I should maybe write like some short stories, you know, try and figure it out.
Figured it out a little bit.
Right. And so I did. And the first character that came into my mind was Hound Bonahue. And it was the line, when I was young, I used to wear dresses. And that was actually based off of a family member of mine who grew up pretty poor in the hollers of Kentucky. And he came from a line that it was all girls before him. They couldn't afford any clothes. So he wore dresses when he was walking up in the hollers. And I started thinking about like, because I'm just fascinated by why people do what they do, and I started thinking about this kind of like hard as nails person who's walking around in a dress and up there, and what sort of interactions they're going to have, and specifically what sort of interactions were they going to have in like the 1940s or the 1920s, and he just turned into a mean some bitch, quite frankly. and that was the impetus for then forming this world. And I had done, you know, it serves two masters, right? For me to have a true like historical love affair with Kentucky, right? And like the history and how and what it represents. And a family member of mine was the president of the coal mine union. So growing up with those stories, Hazard being just about a stone's throw away from Harlan and bloody Harlan that happened throughout the 1930s, that 10-year guerrilla warfare and all of these battles and conflicts and kind of the blood history that happened between individuals in general that occurred in Kentucky, and Kentucky being this representation of the true Western expansion from the original colonies and the interactions that would happen with First People and the frontiers individuals that would come through and fur trapping and, you know, lumber work and having this continual thread of this outsider interacting with people who are sequestered because of the topography and what happens when you insert different personalities and cultural experiences. And, you know, that feeds into my knowledge of bourbon, be able to tell stories, the knowledge of the family. And so it wasn't very long before this one character of walking in the hollers in a dress around the 1920s started to inform the landscape. And so if I just allow for that character to bleed, and they're going to start interacting with these families and they're going to have their own conflicts, if I allow them to take me, then the landscape builds out. And at least that's how my process is. So I do know that I admire immensely individuals who will sit down and they will plot and they will have a map and they will have linear, but this thing came about with the characters. And then I started, once I had an understanding of who they were and how they operated, and trying to be really true to and authentic to them, and not allow for any sort of input of, like, well, let me rephrase that, having true detachment from myself and the character, right? The character's only going to do what the character's going to do in that situation.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, like, I'm as nice as candy, but my goodness, don't I love to write horrible people?
Yeah.
They're so much fun.
They are fun. That's one of the questions here from Paul Shepard, another author. Do you prefer writing the villains?
Oh yeah. I love good and nasties. Oh, I mean, they just take the licenseship, right? And I think that it allows for an investigation into nuance.
I was going to say, they feel much more nuanced than your typical hero can be.
Right.
Right. Everyone, I don't know how we want to plant this conversation, but or chart it, but everyone envisions themselves in contemporary society, right? Everyone envisions themselves as being the hero in their real life. And that's the striving of what they want to do. And I'm just so intrigued with why people do what they do. Not necessarily the precursors that lead up to it, and not necessarily the repercussions, but more so that very tiny decision that gets made in a room when no one's watching. What are these people going to do? And that tends to be like when you start to deal with, the kind of grand thing of, there's a saying that, like, everything that rules the world is greed. And I think I'm more intrigued by everything that rules the world is envy, and kind of like mimetic crisis and comparison and things like that. Not to go like too down philosophically, but so yeah, that tends to lend itself towards having a yearning to write about some nasties, if you will.
So it sounds like if you just interview people in your family and then interview people connected with your family, you just go back, you have enough material for like 50 books. I think you have enough characters at least for 50 books. Do you always find yourself just writing, I guess, what's Southern pulpy stuff? Are you ever going to try to go into like a different kind of genre and see what you can do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on a couple of projects that are definitely outside of my wheelhouse that haven't seen the light of day as of yet. And I prefer, like, let's say my aesthetic is Southern pulp meets Korean thriller with like a lot of nihilism and violence. Like, I want to write
there's a big middle there.
Yeah. I was at a dinner and it was right around the time that Jordan Harper dropped his newest book, Everybody Knows.
Yeah.
And he said this thing that I'm sure gets said all the time, but I was just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing what you just said. And it was like, it's, you enter like whatever cop show with a body count or something with a body count. And if I can just tie in like whatever I'm writing with a body count, then that's what I like. And because that's the kind of things that I like. Action. I like, I don't think I'm going to write a romance in my life is what I'm trying to say. I don't think I'm going to write. So
you're Southern Noir Quentin Tarantino is what you are.
I guess so.
Hey, that works.
I suppose my formula thus far is bombastic spectacle with a body count.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a tagline. You can put that on your book.
Yeah. I guess that's a
TM.
good encapsulation.
Bombastic. Yeah, I like that. Bombastic spectacle.
Put a
with
little
body
TM
count.
on there, so you got it.
Boop, boop. Copyright.
So
Love
this
it.
one's very, and I don't know if you meant it to be like this, but this feels very much like a kind of a mosaic novel with all the different characters and all the different time periods. And there's not really like a straightforward narrative plot. You're kind of exploring all over the place. Did you mean for it to go like that as you were creating the one character Hound and expanding out sort of this, almost this, puzzle piece mosaic story all combined? Or were you trying to make it more straightforward narrative plot and it didn't turn out that way? Or
no, I knew that. So if I were to put an umbrella under here over the book, I would say that a thing begets a thing begets a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 time periods: 1930s, 1960s, 1990s. In the 1930s, specifically, the amount of violence that was occurring in southeastern Kentucky, because a lot of this is based on historical events. There's the Battle of Blair Mountain. There's Bloody Harlan. Like I said, it is very confrontational, kind of guerrilla warfare tactics that are happening within that region with this schism, this battleground between not only conflicting cultures, but also between the coal mining company that owned everything, and the coal miners. So that violence, then as it progresses realistically into the 60s, where you have this transition into a more communal unification. So if 1930s is singular, it's a singular experience of individuals moving through in a very like tactile mannerism. The 60s is more collective coalition trying to enact change that is, prevalent with pretty much, I would say, a thread line throughout the cultural landscape in reality and within the book as well. And then you look into the 90s and you have this kind of dissipation of purpose, right? You have individuals that are coming from these hardened folks. They don't really have a fight to fight, so it lends itself into these other avenues of conflict. And I knew that a thing begets a thing begets a thing. So this sense of insane violence that was happening in the 30s was going to influence the 60s and was going to influence the 90s. And quite frankly, this yearning to strip away from an association to that place, that time period, that mindset. And that's kind of where the book opens with Mick and Ronnie Fairchild. They want to escape their past. They want to kind of escape who they are. And quite frankly, no, you don't get to do that because no one really gets away with anything.
Yeah.
Right. There's always going to be some sort of consequential repercussion of whether or not it's an individual's doing or it's the forebears of that individual. It's like the sins of the father rest on the son, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I wanted these trains to have a collision. And that's where the time periods kind of, so I tried to think about it in a singular focus of the time period and how it would impart meaning later on.
I really liked all the different time periods and jumping back and forth. Especially the 1930s part. I like the history and stuff with that, especially with the miners and everything. Like, is it Cecil Hodge, the big bear guy? Is that his name?
Cecil Doc Hodge. Yeah.
Yeah. I like him a lot.
Yeah. He's great. Go ahead.
I was saying, you were talking about earlier, like the different perspectives and like coming from different regions and stuff, like the train guy, the prospector for the train coming through to his land. He's all nice and young and dressed up, and Cecil's just this big bear of a guy out in the woods and get off my property, get off my land. Just that clash of cultures almost. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's based on, I was telling y'all before we started this, Cecil Doc Hodge is based off of my great uncle Earl, who lived in, so we have a farm. My family's got a farm in in Eastern Kentucky, it's our family cemeteries there. It's where, we bury our kin, and it's got, Lord, 150 plus year old farmhouse that they built down in the bottoms of the hollers. And Cecil Doc Hodge is based off my great uncle Earl, who was a veteran of World War II. And he used to live up there. And my uncle used to talk about how you'd have to yawl the door. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, you'd have to yawl the door before you step foot, because he'd shoot you. If you stepped foot on his property, he'd shoot you. And he actually had a run-in with someone from wildlife coming down a stream on his property, and he went to step foot off of that boat and put his foot into his property, and he like a game warden or something, a waterway warden, something like that. And my uncle Earl told that man, he said, you need to get off my property. And the gentleman was arguing that this is a waterway, this, you don't have any regulation here, we can do what we want. And he goes, yeah, infamously, he said to him, he goes, yeah, but you see that embankment up there, you're gonna have to get out that boat, and you're gonna have to put your foot on a stone right quick, because you're gonna have to trek that boat over. And he goes, as soon as you do that, you're on my property, I'm gonna shoot you. And so, like, all of these things influence it. It's yeah. So I'm glad you liked them. They're fun.
I did. So we have a few questions here, and then I'll ask you my question.
Oh yeah.
This is from Lewis Stevenson. He's another author. If you had to put out your own anthology, what would be your ideal theme, and who would you invite to contribute? So if you're
Lewis has
editing
a story
anthology,
wanting to contribute right now.
Yeah. I don't know. Theme. Oh,
Send
that's
in your story, Lewis. We'll read it first and then give it to your another side.
Yeah.
It's called Bourbons and Baddies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like some good old battens. I'd say some good old battens. It would be the theme, and the story's got to fit with those. That'd probably be it, right off the cuff. We'll say that. Good question. My gosh.
There's another one from Evan Williams. What was talking about Grit Black Blood? What was this book's path to publication, and what was it like to work with Shotgun?
Incriminating pictures. That's how it's. Yeah. Go ahead.
Apparently, it was a long path, 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long path. I was shopping it around. I got a lot of rejections. Nobody was really kicking with it. I'd kind of probably wasn't as active in the querying of agents or publication houses towards the latter end of it. And then Ron from Shotgun Honey gave me a shout on Twitter. We'd had, some loose dialogue, and he basically said, without any prompt, I want to publish this book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started. Working with him has been great. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about it.
Had he read the book prior to saying he wanted to publish it? No.
Oh, he just said he was going to do it without reading it.
Yeah, because I would like randomly, So I think what probably needs to be mentioned in the room, right? So my first short story was published by a publication called Cheap Pop, and my second true one called Willard Tell was published on Shotgun Honey. That was about 10 years ago.
So he kind of knew of you ahead before.
He knew of me, and I had traveled. I have traveled pretty extensively doing these noir at the bars, because I come from that oral storytelling tradition. And so I've done pretty much, if anybody will let me do a storytelling, I'll go there. So I've done in Atlanta, I've done Seattle, I've done a lot in LA. I've hopped the pond. I've gone to Newcastle, England a couple of times, and gotten up with a gaggle of folks there. And they're just the best, by the way. And they also do not know what to do with me. I think I'm just like real high energy. I'm like too high energy for the Scots, and just crazy enough for the Brits. And then you have the Icelandic crime writers who are, they just write horrible stuff, like horrible bad, like as in bad people stuff, not horrible, it's great stuff.
That's clarification.
But they don't know what to do. And then you have the whole French, I'm like, please let me get big in France, y'all. Oh my God. Because they want to eat it up like, cotton candy. They're like, what is the Southern pulp? What are these rednecks? Oh my God.
I know David Joy is really popular in France.
Yeah,
Is he really?
yeah, David.
Yeah.
Benjamin Whitmire is as well.
I think Gabino Iglesias is pretty big in France too.
Exactly. Yeah, they have this. Gosh, I love the French. I love their pursuit. I just love their pursuit towards art in general. I love that they take chances. They just don't. They don't give a. They're just whatever. But I forgot where I was going. Oh my gosh, what were we talking about? That was a long tangent. Holy cannoli.
That works.
You're talking about Noir at the bar.
Noir at the bar. Okay, so we have to say, thank you. I need more coffee. We have to say that this is about a 10-year conversation of me just like kicking it with folks, right?
Right.
And so like I've met a bunch of different writers from all around, and you talk shop, you have beers, you talk about the process, you talk about life, you talk about the art that you enjoy. So I had some rumblings and oh, hey, Fran, I'd had some rumblings and conversations and stuff with folks. And I would periodically pitch out little blurbs about this. And,
Mhm.
Sean would be really nice. Sean Cosby would be like, I want to read this. And he would say that. And so that gets buzz about it. And I think Ron just maybe had his finger on the pulse, and him coming, living in West Virginia, it just made sense. So that was a long answer to that. I mean, I forgot where I was going there. Y'all had to put me back on track.
That was the storytelling part. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Sean S.A. Cosby. I think he put something on Twitter with like the book cover and just like a little blurb about it being in Kentucky or something. And just that little bit, maybe I want to read that. Like I was instantly hooked.
You want
just because of that.
everything in Kentucky.
If it
Brad.
is involving Kentucky, I need it because there's not much that involves around
Hey,
Kentucky.
I have Donald Ray Pollock, so I read his stuff because it takes place Southern Ohio. So
Oh my God, I love Donald Ray Pollock.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Thank you, Evan. Great question. Great name. Donald Ray Pollock. Yeah, Donald Ray Pollock. Oh my gosh,
That's
Donald
a bourbon,
Ray
by the way, Jay. You don't know Evan Williams.
I know.
Okay.
Here in a little bit, we're going to have some trivia, so I'm going to learn some stuff here about drinking.
Okay.
I'm going to become a drinker after this show.
Oh yeah,
Great.
My wife's
An
going to be calling you
imbiber.
like, "Thanks, Brad. Thanks for."
you're welcome.
Right.
You're welcome,
We're
Jay.
sorry in advance.
Yeah.
So what is?
ahead.
No, if you were going to say something, go ahead.
Oh no.
I was going to
Please.
ask, what is Noir at the bar exactly? Because I've heard of it, and I know there's I can't think of his name. Chris McKinley, I think, invited me to one in Lexington one time. I couldn't make it. So is it just?
Oh yeah.
Is it like an organization, or is it just random stuff that kind of pops up? It's all called Noir at the bar, or?
Yeah. I don't know that I can necessarily speak to the originator of it. So please forgive me of that ignorance. So I will say that it is factions around the country of writers that host readings at bars that tend to give a platform to all aspects of writing that fit within noir, which has a lot of different deviations. Like I would make the argument that Southern pulp is a deviation of noir. Noir has the aesthetic of like wrong person on the run. I suppose in a classical sense, it's like, cynicism and a little bit of nihilism and like everything is horrible and, everyone's heavy drinking and whatnot. And I'm sure, oh gosh, please don't anybody come for me. I'm sure there's like better answers for that. I mean, you can come to me, it's fine. But it's
be careful. If you come for her, she's violent, right?
No.
She knows. She knows how to fight.
But it has been a wonderful platform to not only build community, but also to give voice to new and emerging writers. Like, say, for example, here in LA, there is a champion of writers and an accomplished writer himself, Eric Buechner. And he has written, he's written so many books, and he is the nicest person, one of the nicest people I've ever interacted with. And he gave me an opportunity to do my first ever live reading at Noir at the bar in LA. And it allowed for me to start to, there's a horn honking. I'm so sorry if y'all can hear it outside.
That's okay.
It allowed for me to start making connections, getting a platform. And it's these individuals that really want to curate a supportive system for folks to get comfortable reading, for folks to blurb their books. Like, I think I think my first time that I read, I was on the same ticket as Joe Lansdale. And so it's like
That's not
that
intimidating
sort
or
of,
anything. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but he's Texas. We speak the same language,
Yeah.
it's like, and so it's just really wonderful. The connectivity that happens with that, and really beautiful to be in that room because it's usually like 8 to 10 writers. I just got done with one in Seattle. A friend of mine, Nick Feldman, he a great writer. He hosted us, and it was it's always an eclectic group of folks that are in the room. So it's
I'm
great.
dying to hear you read some of this story to us. I really am.
Yeah,
I want to hear
yeah.
the way you read it, the accent. I want to hear that.
Yeah.
So too early to do that? You want to do that now, or you want to?
Whatever y'all want, we can do it. That is very nice praise, friend. Way to live up to the room. Woo! Let me take a knee right quick. I'll know if I'll be able to do it. No, yeah, we can get right into it if y'all like.
You need to take a drink first, or
sure, yeah. Let's get some soda water.
So it's too early
to
be drinking.
I was gonna say, yeah. I keep forgetting.
It's early for me.
It's not even lunchtime out there yet, so.
Perfect. So I'll just read a little bit of the first chapter, if I may.
Yeah,
that's fine. As long or
good?
Short, whatever you want to do.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go.
Well, maybe not the whole 408 pages, but
I'm going to read everything. So everyone, you can go for a restroom break right now, and then we're going to go to 8 hours of reading.
You got it.
And then we're going to take another break and another 8 hours of reading.
Just audiobook the whole time, the whole thing.
Right now, it's happening live.
Yeah. Just hit record. This is it. We're going to sell this.
Here we go. All right. Let me get the giggles at me. Here we go. So chapter 1, 1990. Inner Cowboy Mick. He'd shot 5 people that day. The lady with the bouffant, the husband to her, Red, the man who ran Reds, the fat man in front of him while waiting in line to kill Red, and me. Believe that were all that gun had given him in the years he'd told it. 45 split through me like it's cutting hair. Sit me against the busted out cutlass next door with streams of red spurting out. Settled over me in cold spikes fitted with flesh eaters as rodeo hands, the disease making way over every inch. Mick Fairchild were his name, that rusty motherfucker. Stood with a phone in one hand and a Ruger Blackhawk in the other. His feet planted on the peeling patch of throwaway roof that these shitholes always have. It had been 2 years since I'd seen him last, and morning, Mick, bubbled out a lot nicer than that fucker deserved. Morning, he clipped, that phone dropping from his shoulder. Oh, that's right, the phone. Well, we better rewind right quick. Ring, ring, zero in on a phone. A rotary phone. A shitty phone with a long cord that belongs in a place where gravel makes up the majority of the parking lot. Where beat down doors and bugs constantly crawl out of cracks, and there's always one lady round somewheres with her hair teased to God and a blue bouffant, and there ain't shit you can go to saying to her that's going to convince her you ain't what she's thinking you are. And the Franklin you slam down for propriety's sake with the hint at if there's a joiner. I'd have garner a listen, and by the grace of God, there hadn't been one. So, for you know what's what, you're popping frosties and swapping yarns with a man packing heat, and you done found out about his children he don't see no more, because he ain't worth the company. And it's shitty, the place you're at. Not him, he's a pretty solid guy for a feller named T-Bone, who train hopped off the tracks just yonder over. And you go to thinking he probably don't deserve all that shit his kids said to him, because he seems like a nice enough guy, because you're cracking cold ones out of a cooler, listening to a train whiz by every hour on the hour where breezes don't exist, except for once a year, when you finally decide to tear yourself from that shitty green door encasing the room where this phone exists and get some air on your skin, because a damn week had passed since you were somewheres halfway of Waco and Dallas with that deed of paper bare knuckled between your fingers and that steering wheel with them words sawing nail beds into your damned meat pile skin with a back order a cast iron sear blackening where Connie wrote his name. Your daddy. Find him. Ring, ring. Then there goes that damn phone again, biting clumps of your gut and spitting them back out at you, horning out like some goddamn bugle of deserve, as in, buddy, you best believe what's coming got a prerequisite. But all you can think, about as that fluff of corn exploding on your windshield and them spirals of tinctured yeller spinning arcs and sparks like whittled gold, which had ram-jammed your foot down, metal to the pedal, jarring up in wheels of that rumbled muscle car dead in your tracks on a 2-lane highway in the middle of fucking nowhere. And you never really did like the middle of fucking nowhere because it's where you're from, and there was always that stink tagging along like a damn blanket suffocating tight. They weren't the type nurses taught in hospitals, and all of it due this episode, this random splitting of a cornfield by a punching fat middle-aged clown with paint left over from a kid's birthday plastered on his face were cause you's hunting your dad. And there were an all-over notion of not right tied up on both those ends. Like, weren't nothing warranting a clown get up this far out in the boonies that weren't dipped and dripped and seedy and wrong, which were of right accord like the card-carrying sentimentality you had towards that particular family member in search of. And a surefire sealed and dealed agreement of both them quandaries were flapping jacks in the form of that big fat zero that clown mouth were making. Suppose it were sort of natural causations to why your foot would go to knee-jerk reaction of burn, baby, burn, and stomp that gas pedal full metal jacket down, plow driving Ronald McDonald there to clip dent to shit on your bumper, and you double dutch shoving a body in your trunk. And all this sermon to the mount, because in the foreground of now, where that same monster's bark, there's a faded yellow paper flapping under your windshield in the motherfucking breeze. That ought to bring us about fair and square. Let's get to that convo carrying out, shall we? In true slip and slide fashion and form, a wide variance, the preferred measure of attack regarding these sorts of things. However, Nick standing with his feet spread further than his shoulders atop that motel roof weren't rooted so much in tactical attunement and finesse as much as it were the desired absconsion of that bean pole visage that carried a 150-pound frame on a taller than should even when sopping wet. But you had to give him props for the try. Thought I was going to have to wait all morning up here sweating like a pig before you grabbed that note. Ain't I struck you slow, Mick? A slight slurry and a slush detectable in the lower right side, and a grateful sigh that the Wesson God Almighty clutched in the left were beginning to assuage the worry of the bullet's initial cumbersome placement. Turned up to him, marking a spot with a squint. How long's it been? Nick swatted out 2. But that little affair didn't really give us adequate time, so's 12 for good measure, as if it were a fact he'd chewed on every day since the last sighting. That a clown I saw in your trunk? Sure enough is. He tied the balloon wrong. Nick always were a man to draw things out. Fashioned himself after a real-life gunslinger, a version of one of them tough guys born and bred on John Wayne and Clint. Caught himself up in it, living out this fantasy of somebody reared in the wrong time, in the wrong place. Wanted no ownership whatsoever to that holler back east. He'd growed into it well, where the thread spoke the talk, carried the gun, but he never were forced to ownership on it. Just sent a reminder down my spine is all. Mick went for a scratch on his nose, the Ruger following suit, pinning that grain against the rugged glare of his sun-tarnished skin. Might like a story. He weren't asking after that one about Ronald. He's asking after that blood that had sat and boiled and festered on him. Come on me in a cornfield. Just popped out. You don't say. The gun still arched by his brow. Just popped out on you. That'd be. I guess he'd been sit down on a promise of a couple of stacks of 10, been told and fed and clothed and things that ain't part that ain't real, and he done shot me, this cowboy Mick Fairchild, because somebody told him to, and because he never could get past me knowing what he really were. I'd say it now if you's primed on a thing, he clumped with heavy breath. Fighting words. Finally. Traveled all the way up to the line, and now they tiptoe across to see who's made of what. That pain of knowing, whittling over the dawn, speckling. That scar he'd earned at 6, all grease and shine from where Granny'd done a bad stitch after he'd pushed down and beat over by a meek boy. So he said. From mine to his, but more to me. You ain't ever wanted to hear nothing I done tried to give. Starting up now just 'cause you standing there and I sitting here don't seem to fit all that well with sense. It's a problem, Mick. It truly is. That glint forced me. A stare I'd seen practice since rumbles staged in the backyard. But these clouds buried in 'em, barrels of haze covering up his eyes, fogging over that sight he's never granted. It were dynamite, and the match were already fucking burning. Go time. He's a sickly boy, Fragile little thing, cough that you always that cough that con that rattling, like he's begging for the goddamn world to stop. Like you'd something worth contributing. And I used to hope maybe you did. Used to think, God damn, it might just be. Sun tipped round, edge and mix tilt over and out. Folds of black, tacky on steel, cold gravel. That frail boy playing in the dirt of his mind, his life ahead of him. That thing that'd make him whole, hidden in a suit somewheres he'd yet to step in. Never quite found the fit, did you? I'd made my peace on it long ago. Charted my mark, slug kicked out, fire burned through, bang clanged overhead. Mick Fairchild were my brother, and I done killed them dead. Well, that's probably a pretty good stopping point.
That was good.
Oh, thanks.
So here's a question.
Uh-huh.
Who the hell is going to do the audiobook aside from you, right?
Ashley
I
Erwin's going to do the audio.
That's what I'm saying. You're going to have to do it because if you start interviewing people to do the audiobook, none of them are going to live up to that at all. So.
Yeah, it's my biggest request that I get is that you got to do it. So I got to talk to Ron about it or just do it myself.
Was that rant in the beginning? Was that just all one sentence? I mean, it just seemed like it just one real long. That was nuts.
I like a ramble for sure. Who was it? I was hanging out with a writer, and what did he call me? He called me the James Joyce of Southern Pulp, and I was like, I can.
There you go.
I can deal with that. That's good. That's a nice way of saying schizophrenic, I suppose. But
yeah, that's gonna be on the cover of your next book. Just use that quote. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it. That's good. But no, I like a ramble. I suppose. Yeah.
Is it easy for you to switch into the dialect, or do you have to feel like you need to practice it, or is it just click?
That voice right there is that's my dad's voice, quite frankly. Yeah. But now the second chapter, I'll read like 2 sentences of it. The second chapter, it's Irish because you have to think that's it's purposeful,
the Whittle
right?
Boys.
Because the Whittle Boys, because you had this huge influx of Scotch, Irish, English, German into southeastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so, that's where their accent kind of comes in, and that starts in the 1930s, and so it goes. Well, I don't mind telling you, my brother's passion worked something he'd learnt entirely on his own. Now, bit of a mark of a trade, rather. Picked it up over a spell of ripping and running. We'd found ourselves in buckwheats, bathing in it, fur we even stepped foot into double digits. Ain't it right, Riley? Riley. So, that
you absolutely need to do the audiobook yourself.
Yeah. Oh. This is all you. Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Like I'm not good with audiobooks. Like I tune out and zone out but I would so be into this one. Just the different language, the different voices and all that stuff. Yes, let's do this.
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's
Ron, if you're listening, we need to make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna start a petition right now.
I mean, it's everybody ask it. So I've got to put some. We've had enough mentions of intentions of it. We got to put some action behind it, if you will.
There you go. So with like the Irish coming in and like the 1930s stuff in Kentucky, did you do a lot of research for this other than what you've learned from your family and whatnot?
Yeah, I had lots of research. Lots of just understanding of Hazard in general. So Hazard is 3 hours southeast of Louisville, southeastern Kentucky, coal mining country. It is in Perry County. And when you start to look at the evolution of Hazard, early 1800s, you had this aristocracy, that kind of came into the area, and it was for the lumber industry. And then when the lumber industry transitioned into coal, you had more influx of individuals coming into this place that had been completely sequestered by mountains. I have a couple of books where it's like old deeds, which are really fascinating to read through. Yeah, and just understanding like the migration of folks in general, and I'm very captivated by this frontiersman of what type of individual would be able to survive in this environment in that time period. you know, and luckily I have all of these stories. So my uncle, prior to his passing, who is actually the hitman of Hazard, that's part of the dedication of the book. He was he was a storyteller. He used to call it the radio there in Hazard, and you could just get on a tirade of stories. And he was 6'6", and at one point in his life, he carried about a 9-inch barrel gun with him, and he used to whip it out and stuff. And so
Clint
before
Eastwood
he
pulled all the way out.
yeah, legit, he's got some crazy stories. He before he passed, he was the last living individual with the stories of our family, and so I went and audio recorded as much as I could.
Nice.
Because it was gonna leave with them, and you know, we had a discussion about whether I could use any of this stuff. So the Erwins are just peppered all throughout this. So I go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of which, then, so what does your family think of this book and your writing? Are they like, stop giving away our secrets, or what?
It's too much for her mom, apparently.
Yeah.
Her mom needs the easy mystery cozy thrillers.
No, my uncle told me that I could use anything. My cousins, I think they're in the process of maybe reading it. One of my cousins lent a holler to me. I know that my dad would be proud of it. I went and saw. I think everyone's good with it.
As long as you don't tell where the actual bodies are buried, then they're probably fine with it, right?
Yeah, okay. yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's so rich and beautiful. Before we got on this, before we started the live, you know, I was telling y'all that my people have been in Kentucky since 1775, and you have to put that into consideration that the state of Kentucky wasn't accredited until 1792. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't made statehood. So there has been, it's so rich. There's just so many stories there. And actually the Whittle boys, the Whittle name is my mom's side. And that's another fascinating thing that I think I'm probably going to investigate in a book at some point, because they all come from Florida. And so I'm the first generation out of 7 to not be born in Florida. So all over, and that they have their own different spell of things too. So, I mean, I think if it can be true to some sort of baseline of reality, I think that's when the best art comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love
not to say I don't like fantasy, because I do.
I love all the rich history of stuff like that, like, because it goes back, like you said, generations and generations.
Yeah.
And that oral storytelling passed down. I love all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's so beautiful. Like, I grew up listening to, my dad tell stories about our Aunt Florence and having live mules, and, you know, the mules that's what's tending your garden and whatnot, and living up there in the hollers. And like my uncle, before he passed away, he kind of homesteaded the farmhouse and put some running electricity in it. And my dad and his brothers and my cousin would go to the farm once a year. And they would they'd call it hunting, but I think that was just like drinking. And so
like going golfing, but you're
and they'd stay there, and there's no running water. It's a stream and a well, and it's some of the most beautiful country in the entire world. I mean, that's where my people are.
That sounds familiar to Brad right now, right? Where you are in Kentucky? No.
I'm kind of in a city, a little small city. I don't want to dox myself and say what town I'm in, but
Brad, you can get plumbing in the inside of the house now.
Hey, I'll say, when I look out my front door, I can see one of the distilleries in Kentucky. So
nice.
So wake up on the cold
Very
mornings,
nice.
you can smell the mash outside, take the dogs out.
Which
wonderful.
distillery is that?
I can't say, Jay. They'll know where I live. I'll tell you all.
Keep your anonymity.
I was going to say,
a bunch of them.
Is it the answer to one of the questions in our game coming up?
Probably.
Okay. Speaking of which, I mean, who's up for a drinking game? Not that kind of drinking game. Those in the chat.
I poured a little one a minute ago.
I know.
I do want to say,
I'm gonna get my soda water refill. Here we go.
This might be golf on a tangent, but I love, and I might be weird, and no one else might ever do this, but I like going to places and think about who used to be here before, who used to walk these
every
halls,
time,
all this kind of stuff.
Every time.
I'll probably dox myself by saying this, but there is a place in town outside of a state building, and right now it's like a park. There's like a brick walkway and a fountain, and we have like summer concert series there, and they do like derby breakfast there and stuff, and kids are all playing. But back in like the 1900s, the governor on that brick path, there's a little plaque saying, I think William Goebel was shot and killed here. So like he died on this spot, and this is where all the kids are playing now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like thinking about what was this like 100 years ago? What was this like 200 years ago? Who was here? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's why there's a plaque. There's a pretty gnarly experience that happens in the 30s that then in that happens in the 60s. Yeah, but then in the 90s when some of the other characters are kind of having like laissez-faire conversations at a Dairy Mart or something like that, the plaque exists from where those individuals met their demise, and
it's grown over now. And
it's I think about that all the time. I was telling y'all earlier, I was just in Park City earlier this week, and I'd never seen snow like that in my entire life. It's so beautiful. But as I'm like driving up into the hills up there, I just am overwhelmed with the journey that people had to make in order to get there. Right. So like, what did it look like when they mounted that first crest and they saw this land? And I think about that all the time when we're hiking in California, and the land speaks to you, right?
Yeah.
If you are in tune enough, and there's a lot of that's present. I talk about the land a lot in this book, and I talk about the trees, and the land is as much a character as every individual that's walking it is, because we're stewards of it. Everything's connected. And so if you lend an ear to it, it'll tell you about the people. Like, so fascinating. So I think about that 24/7.
Yeah, there's that one section near the beginning talking about the big oak tree with everyone's initials carved in it, and a car drove into it one time and the branch fell off.
Yeah. It's, thinking about that, like thinking about how these things that have existed, these hundreds and 1,000-year-old things.
And what else has this tree seen? Like, that sounds corny to say it out loud, but
no,
what else went around? What else happened from this tree? You're talking about maybe slaves were hung from it and just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, I mean, everything carries the blood of the land, right? Everything. To bring it back to a certain degree, everything carries the sins of the people that walked before it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Jay, that all just you glaze over
on. No. I'm listening to. I mean, I guess I don't think of stuff like that. I mean, I like to, both of you, where you're walking, where you're going, you're wondering who was there before you, all that stuff. It's never dawned on me. Like, I don't know. I'm not that deep. We just got deep. I'm not that deep.
That's all right.
Because I go down to like the old state capitol buildings, like who all used to walk through here and do all this. And my kids are running around. This is where they used to hold the Senate and chambers of commerce and all that stuff. But the kids are goofing off now. It's cool to think about. Yeah. And there's not. I'll shut up in a second. There's an account on Instagram where this person travels around Europe and they take a picture of what's there now and they hold up an old Polaroid of that same spot from World War II and they kind of match it up. I just think that's really cool.
Oh my God.
It's all like, it's like now it's all nice and pretty, but in the old Polaroid, it's all blown up, or there's soldiers laying on the ground with machine guns, or a tank's destroyed, just to see what happened. Not even that long ago, 80 years ago now or so?
Yeah, you've got to read All the Light We Cannot See. It takes place. It's oh my gosh, just read it. Put it in your Yohos.
Is it World War II or is it something different?
Yeah.
Okay.
World War II, and it's fascinating. It works in a couple of different timelines, but it's oh my gosh, the main character Marie is this little blonde girl, and she is just it is a master class in how things come together. Wow. So
I'll write it down. I love World War II stuff.
Same. Any war stuff, honestly. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll say we just became best friends. Bourbon and World War II stuff.
Yeah, history, hardcore history, Daniele Bellelli, those podcasts, things like that. I mean, if I were to open up, I have like a desk where I do my work. It's all military tactical books and like Otto von Bismarck biographies and things like that. Yeah, I love it. That, as I said earlier, that was my love language with my dad. Let's watch the History Channel and let's just sit here and let's think about these people that came on before them. What do you think they're like? And just talking stuff like that.
I don't know. It's so fascinating to think because you'll never know. Honestly, it's just cool to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it makes me think of that Pillars of the Earth book, right? And talking about like building this church that took
Ken
thousands
Follett, right?
it took thousands of years. Like when you're walking by these buildings, and you're thinking about the architecture. I lived in Italy for a while, and so I got the chance to kind of go into these old. There was this one town called San Gimignano, and it's a medieval town. It's got the fortress around it, and you're looking at these towers that have just like the little, I don't know what they're called, but the little slants of
like
windows
arrow
where
slits.
Arrow slits, yeah. And
Yeah.
you're standing in a church, and half of it's hanging off the cliff, and you're thinking like, who built this? Like, how long did it take? What is it's so fascinating.
Is it up to code? No.
It's
not.
OSHA does not apply.
That's a steep cliff right now.
There's no handrails.
I know.
Steps are really narrow.
That's great.
All right, you want to do? Jay set up a drinking trivia challenge. You want to answer? You'll probably. I bet you ace
I'll
this.
try.
It's easy.
Maybe not. Could not be true. We'll see. I'll try.
So we're gonna play some drinking trivia challenge. You ready for my intro, Jay? I didn't talk on it though.
Did you make one?
I did. It's not as corny as it normally is. You ready?
We'll see.
That was.
You should have played some one bourbon, one scotch. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. So I think you'll ace these. I think there's 10 questions on here.
Is that what I gave you? I don't remember the answers, by the way. I found them.
I'm curious, Jay, if you know what these answers are. All right. So number one, what alcohol goes in Irish coffee?
Irish whiskey and Bailey's.
Whiskey. That's correct. Number two, what?
I don't think my answers were that deep. The answer was just whiskey.
Whiskey.
That's what the internet said.
Yeah.
I like that the non-drinker created the drinking trivia question.
Yeah.
Right? This is great.
I know of this stuff. I just don't partake in it anymore. I'm too old. In my younger days, I'm fine, but
Number two, what makes beer bitter? Hops. Number three, what's the main fruit to make gin? Juniper berries.
Fruit. Juniper. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll go easy answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Just remember, easy answers.
Right. I was like, how esoteric do we want to go here? Oh my gosh.
Number four, what kind of alcohol is in a daiquiri?
Rum.
I made it too easy. That's okay.
This one's really easy.
Good.
What kind of alcohol is in a margarita?
Tequila.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the Kentucky one. What cocktail is made with bourbon, sugar, water, crushed or shaved ice, and fresh mint?
Ooh, mint julep.
Mint juleps are good. Jay, have you had a mint julep?
I don't think so. But
they're good. They'll get you where you need to go, brother.
I mean, there's a period of my life that I've forgotten, so I could have during that time.
Especially with the simple syrup added in there. It's all nice and sugary.
Yeah. They're delicious.
Number 7, which cocktail is made with whiskey, lemon juice, sugar, and an optional dash of egg white?
A sour.
Whiskey sour. Which U.S. state is named on the bottle, which U.S. state is named on the label of a Jack Daniel's bottle?
Tennessee.
What is the oldest distillery in the United States that still operates today?
Buffalo Trace?
Buffalo Trace.
My gosh, thank goodness.
They made medicinal alcohol during Prohibition.
Yeah.
Or one of 4 that were still open.
Yeah. Oh no, I lost.
Go
ahead, sorry.
Okay, I thought we lost Brad. I was like, hey, I don't have control.
I think I'm lagging a little bit.
Yeah.
Last question. What's the national alcoholic drink of the United States?
The national alcoholic drink of the United States? Well, 1964.
So it's not like a mixed drink. It's just a drink.
Think easy.
The only thing
think easy.
The national drink?
The national alcoholic drink of the United States.
Old fashioned?
Think simpler than that. Like what you would put in an old fashioned. Bourbon.
Yeah, 1964. Congress passed. Yeah, that bourbon. Yeah, I was like, hold on a second. Look, where are we going? Yeah, bourbon. Yes.
Told you.
Yes.
That was entertaining. It was good.
Y'all are making me thirsty, says CW.
Save it for next week. That's next week's guest.
It is. That's what I'm drinking right now. I've got L8 mixed with some Buffalo Trace.
Spectacular. What a lovely Saturday.
So this book recently came out it came out in December, Grit by Blood?
December the 9th. Mm-hmm.
What's the reception been so far? Has it been pretty positive as far as what you've seen?
I think so. I think people have been pretty receptive to it. I think that it's quite, as we've mentioned earlier, it's something you got to dedicate some time to. It's not something. It's not a dip in, dip out read. It's something where I'm like, hey, I want you to sit down, and this is a couple afternoons or a couple evenings.
Yeah.
But folks have said some nice stuff. I've got some folks that are going to lend out some reviews coming shortly. So, it's either going to be a bloodbath or a celebration. We'll welcome both, right? Because, at the end of it, I was having a conversation last night about how I think the true beauty of writing is the process of writing, and you cannot, once it's out in the world, people are going to impart whatever projection, inflection that they want on it, and you've just got to be really comfortable with the process of writing. And the other way to do that is I just write shit that I think is dope. And so if other people vibe, then that's great. If people let me come into a room and read, I love that, because I do think that people enjoy it, but I just write things that I think are dope. So, so I can't really, one of the podcasts that I was on, Dark Waters podcast a while back, they're so lovely. They asked a question of, which perplexes me at times. If you could compare yourself to another writer, who would it be? And I still stand behind my answer of, I cannot lend that distinction. That's not my place to do. That's whomever's reading it. I can remind them of somebody. I can say writers that I really enjoy reading that I would love to be in, on a bookshelf next to them.
Yeah.
But that's just a yearning of them. That's a good table mate to break some bread with, Yeah.
So speaking of process, what is your process? Do you have to have quiet, or do you play music? Do you stress over structures? Do you rewrite things 100 times? Walk us through some of that.
Yeah. So if I'm at home, I do whiskey work from the house as well. So I have a writing desk, and I don't do anything else except for write at that desk. That desk is it's salvation. And I treat it with a lot of sanctity and reverence. And when I sit down at that desk, I try to be respectful of that, because I'm also, like I said, everything that I write is it's a conversation with my dad.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to my ancestors to a little bit, and allowing them to come through this art of this storytelling, to allow them to come through. So I tend to have a lot of paper that's got stuff written on everywhere. I do not listen to music. I will listen to. I have listened to metal before in a rewrite of action scenes, but that's way back. And sometimes I will have maybe a tone that I'm trying to curate, that there'll be a song in my head, but I won't ever listen to music. I need quiet.
Did you say you listen to metal? Is that what you said?
For the action scenes.
All right.
In general, I'm a metalhead. I love all music, but I tend to like aggressive music. So because I associate it with, I have found that I am a little bit of an odd bird. I don't listen to a lot of music when I'm in the car. Music is very much regulated to a vehicle of action for me. So it is like if I'm working out or if I am trying to get hyped up for something. So it tends to be a little bit more aggressive. I think that my dad didn't listen to music. My mom listens to music. So I don't really ever have music on in the house. But if I do, it tends to be a little bit more metal oriented.
Well, we just now can do another show.
Did you just become best friends, Jay?
Yeah, we just became best friends. Did we just become best friends? Okay.
Oh my God, we're totally best friends, guys.
Totally best friends.
Yeah.
I love that, and I would say probably most writers respect their work, but I love that you almost have this reverence for it, especially
it's like
when
sacred, like that. The desk is sacred ground, you know, and you don't want to,
especially where you feel like
tarnish
you having conversations with your dad. There's almost another level of reverence to it, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, there's pictures of like my family up above the desk and like sayings and whatnot. And like if I'm sitting at that desk, then I'm reading things that are lending influence or getting me in a particular modality of thinking, because the world is pretty hectic. And specifically, you know, for my job, I juggle a lot. And so I need to quiet that. And treat it with respect. Now, and I try to stay on track. Like I'll have pieces of paper. Like if I'm really good, this isn't all the time, but if I'm really like in the zone in the process, then I'll have some Post-its next to me. And if a thought comes into my head that would take me away from the writing, I'll just write a word down, and then I can revisit that. And if I'm really in the zone of writing, I'll do the Pomodoro method. Have y'all heard of that? It's like a method of studying or working where you set a timer and you try to be extremely laser focused for segments of time and then give yourself short breaks. So it can be like you're going to work diligently at something for 30 minutes and you're going to take a 5-minute break, set the clock again.
Oh, okay.
And you have repetition through that to where you like finish a full like 90-minute cycle, and then you can step away from it because there are some studies that say that you can't focus on something for more than 90 minutes. So I'll do something along those lines, and I usually have an alarm near me, and then I'll break away. But when I get into that zone, everything that I'm doing, even if I'm not sitting at the desk writing, it's in the back of the tinker and I'm thinking about it. So like I'll be in the middle of the night. As long as I have paper near me, I'll write something down, and then that's going to take me back. So
it's like almost like training your brain to be in that zone for a long time. Definitely.
Yeah.
I need to do that.
Because
I get interrupted by the kids so much. Like I'll do doing something interrupted by the kids and doing something interrupted by the kids. Yeah. So if I do it in shorter periods, it wouldn't. I guess less interruptions would happen maybe.
Yeah, look it up. It's and they actually suggest that you get an old school like bacon timer that you set it, and you kind of remove yourself entirely from any sort of technological influence.
Yeah, this is bad. I need to just throw this away sometimes.
Do it right now. Do it live. Throw it away.
Just fling it across the room.
There's something really beautiful to be said about social media and whatever permutation that is that an individual participates within, but there is also I'm of the proponent and becoming more and more so as I am relinquishing the control that it has on me, and the more distance that I put from it, I'm finding that my brain processes things very different. So I'm more and more inclined that it's a marketing tool that should not. And like I said, I planted like a little seed of mimetic crisis, which is a 5-day podcast. But I'm not so sure that it's the best experiment that we have all collectively partook in. So.
There's some good things about it, but there's a lot of negative things about it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So as we start winding down some, we're going to let you get to your Saturday, but before you go, who usually sees your first stuff? Who do you run your store ideals and stories across?
The man. Yeah, the man. He sees, he gets first reader. So he is basically.
Does he ever go, no? Dude, change it.
He doesn't say no. No, he doesn't say no. he posits questions.
Okay.
He's a writer as well, and he's got, oh my gosh, he's got some tankers that are about to start shopping. Wow, he's got this one that he's wrapping up, and it is gonna.
Same genre, or are we talking like fantasy or something?
No, so he has this book, and I'll speak out of turn on it, but I'm super excited about it because I'm about to read it in its full length. I've read snippets of it, but I'm about to be able to read the full thing. So it's like I may not do it justice, but I'll say it. It's Lonesome Dove meets Resident Evil meets adventure, and it's banger.
Nice.
So he's got a.
So is it 1,000 pages like Lonesome Dove?
It's a honker. Yeah,
it's a honker.
It's not 1,000 pages, but it's a honker. He has some books that he's shopping around that fit more closely within the crime genre, but he is navigating different waters in this next one I'm really excited about. But to bring it back to we're very blessed to both partake in the journey of artistic exploration and to be able to live a relatively ritualistic monastic schedule of when it comes to our reading, because we our writing, because he's in the super diligent he is a disciple of discipline right now in his writing, and I'm just about to partake into that level of zone with the new work. But yeah, we read each other's stuff, and that's kind of the only opinion that matters.
Cool.
Otherwise, yeah.
How did you? I was going to ask, how did you celebrate getting accepted with Shotgun Honey? Big party.
Oh, I cried.
Okay.
No, I just didn't know how to process it, so I just cried. I think that's my default. I was like, "This is too much," and I was just like, "Boo." And to be quite frank, I haven't really. It is.
Has it not sunk in yet? Maybe.
Yeah.
No.
It still didn't sink in. No.
No, it's pretty surreal still. I mean, I did a reading in Louisville. It was very important for me to do 2 little mini book launches in Kentucky for a couple of reasons.
One was at Butcher Cabin Books, right?
Butcher Cabin Books in Louisville, great bookstore, really lovely. And then the other one,
Jenny's awesome.
She's great. Oh my! I was a lot of energy for her, but she is great.
She's very quiet, but she's awesome.
She's super quiet. Yeah, but she's got a book coming out.
She does in January next year, I think.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about that. That Wretched Valley, is that what it's called? I think.
Yeah, it's Detloff Pass in Red River Gorge is basically what it is.
Yeah, and I'm super excited for that. What a cool store. If y'all are ever around Louisville, go visit it. So excited for her. And then
you've been before, Brad, right?
Yeah, I've been there twice. I went for the opening weekend, and then Clay McCall Chapman was there with the Ghost Eaters, did a reading. It was cool.
Yeah. And then I did one at oh my gosh, Earl Spotted Newt. Reed Spotted Newt in Hazard. And that was fantastic, and I got to read that in family. But I have this I think that there'll be a couple of things coming up that I think it'll be a couple of events that are in the works that I think it'll start to really hit home that
it's out there and it's
here.
real.
And and I may toast
it's a thing you can touch and
some champs, if you will. Yeah.
So I've got 2 final questions for you.
Yeah.
One, just a second ago, you talked about you didn't like to compare yourself to other writers, but do you feel the influence of other writers in your writing? Because for me, it felt your voice feels very original. It's not oh, that's like Joe Lansdale or that's like David Joy. It feels original. But do you have any influence from other writers that you read before?
I mean, I think during this time I was reading a lot of Southern writers. Let me answer it this way. I have some writers that left an insurmountable imprint on me. And I am sure that there are ways in which they crafted a story that have lent tentacles into my work, right? So Carson McCullers, Larry Brown, Tom Franklin, Donald Ray Pollock, Harry Crews. Harry Crews is I adore.
Mhm.
Frank Bill. When Donnybrook came out, it left. I had never read anything. I had never read like action like that before. The way that he carves out fighting, and I found it to be singular in its presence. And interestingly enough, I would make an argument that a lot of contemporary writers within the crime fiction world kind of all embarked upon that style, which I do believe is kind of like a Leonard Cohen exploration of like short spurts dialogue, directive dialogue.
I see that in Crimes of Southern Indiana too. So
right.
That's what I have from Frank Bill. So yeah.
And so there are writers like that. Right around the time when I was writing this book, I think I had kind of simultaneously discovered all of these writers at the same time. And so this was prior to, I was still behind a bar at that point, tending bar for a job. So I had a lot more liberty with my time. So I was reading like 5 books at once. With just voracious appetite. So I would say that those individuals, and then, you know, I'm a fan of movies too. So a thing begets a thing begets a thing, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Jay, do you have any other questions? I got one more.
Go ahead with your last one. I was going to, see where people could find her, Twitter, all that stuff. So you go ahead with your next one.
So if you're talking about being a bartender, if you were to make a drink for Grit Black Blood, what would your drink be, and what would you call it?
Great question. So, side note. Okay, let me do a caveat to that. Am I making a drink for you, or am I making a drink for myself?
For yourself. Like what drink would represent this book? If you were to create
not to drink while reading it, but one that's like based on the book, kind of.
This is the Grit Black Blood, drink. What would it be?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't drink cocktails, so that's why I was like, "Is this for me?" Despite,
so what would be one for you, and then what would be a cocktail you'd do?
For me, it's neat. It would be overproof bourbon and a Bud Diesel, and we would just have good company with each other. And for someone, okay, I got it. So Angels Envy Bourbon, Kentucky Straight.
There you go.
Finished bourbon.
Pimp the brand. There you go.
I was waiting to see if she was going to go that route. Yeah.
Kentucky Straight Bourbon finished in ruby port wine barrels, aka that liquid lace.
There you go.
I would say that, and lemon juice, and Zucca, which is a rhubarb amaro, and honey, and then like a fire water tincture. Because I think it needs to have a couple of layers. It needs to be bright like sunshine. It needs to have the blood of the land, which is that rhubarb amaro, a bitter Italian digestif, and then it needs to have a little bit of fire under it.
It's got that kick, that cinnamon kick.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah. Great question.
Someone's going to play this back and make it now and start selling it. So.
We need to make it and see what it tastes like.
Yeah.
Yes. Good.
Well, Ashley, this has been fun. We can't thank you enough for making up to date. Luckily we're both healthy this time to talk with you.
Thank you so much for being understanding about the whole thing. I felt horrible about it.
Oh my gosh, friend, life happens. I'm glad that you're feeling better, and thank you all for having me on. Thank you for trudging through the book. Hopefully it wasn't that tedious, and hopefully you had a good time with it.
I haven't finished it yet. I'm about halfway through, but I'm really enjoing it.
Where can people find you? Twitter, Instagram, stalk you a little bit, or
so I think the easiest way to do it would be ashley-erwin.com. I got a website that'll link you all to links to the books, links to all my short stories that I've written. It has a social media, Twitter and Instagram link. My Instagram handle is bonfirebooze, BOOZE, and my Twitter is Little Blonde Ninja. But the easiest way to find all of that is just ashley-erwin.com.
Great.
And all the
Can't
links
thank you
are
enough.
down
Yes.
in the
Yeah,
bio.
Brad's
too.
gonna put
All the
everything
links
down below. There you go.
And
Can't
one
thank
last
you
thing,
enough,
real
so-
quick. So right
Yeah.
now, if you go to shotgunhoney.com and use
Oh, that's right. I
coupon
saw
code
this.
whiskey,
Yes.
you can save 25% on your own brand spanking new copy of Grit Black Blood.
Yeah.
So go check out Shotgun Honey, get you a great book at a little discount price.
Cool.
Yes, please do. And thank y'all again for the opportunity to speak to y'all. So lovely to meet you, and thanks to everybody who listened.
Yeah. Go
Appreciate
enjoy
y'all.
the rest of your this Saturday. It is Saturday. Yes. So everyone,
It's
thanks so
Saturday.
much for everyone in the chat. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for hanging out with us. For Brad over there, I'm Jay. Ashley, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it. Till
Oh,
we
my
meet
pleasure.
again, should we tell him who's next week?
We already did,
he's
Jay.
actually he's actually in the chat here. CW Blackwell will join
CW
us next
Blackwell's
week.
next
Oh,
week.
good.
So-
Oh, great. Well,
Yeah,
y'all have
next
a great time.
next Saturday night, 8 p.m. our time Eastern. So I don't know. You guys can do the math, all that stuff. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks,
Ashley,
everyone.
so much.
you'll have to come back sometime since we're all
Definitely.
best friends
I
now.
shall.
Yeah.
Yeah, you let me. We'll
We're
come
going
back
to
and
have
talk
a
about
metal
anything.
episode. That's what we're going to have.
Metal
a
and
music
bourbon.
episode. Yeah.
Yep.
Love
Let's
it.
do it.
Brad
right,
would be
y'all.
so
Thank you so
lost
much.
with the metal. So
I'll just sit back
That's
and I'll
okay.
have a nice little drink, and y'all can talk about the metal.
I love it.
all right,
Yeah,
everybody.
let's
See ya.
thrash. All right, bye, friends. Thank
Ashley.
you.
Bye.
Jay, I love you.
I know you do.